Great. Well, thanks for popping in. This is a talk that I've given to a bunch of people at my various jobs over the years in various forms, and this is the first time I've done it for more of a gaming audience. So I had to flip all my references. It's kind of fun because I reference FPS games and stuff in the talk usually. So I want to talk today about ergonomics for your desk, and whether it's for work, whether it's for gaming. It's going to have mostly a gaming focus, but I think everything in this is pretty applicable no matter what you do when you sit at your desk. Um, I'll say that in the chat for Valorant Academy, there's a reference document that has most of the actual content in it that I will be referencing throughout this. It's not really the slide deck; it's more about the content in there. So if you want to reference back to anything I'm saying, it's all pretty much in there. So let's go through what we're going to talk about today. So one, should you care about this? And two, why should you listen to me? We're going to go through adjusting your setup. I'm on video right now. The goal here is that I'll be able to show you some things that I do with my own setup, some stuff I've done in the past, etc., for your chair, your desk, your monitors, your mouse and keyboard, etc. At the very end, talk a little bit about some exercise and movement that you can do to help keep your wrists nice and loose and make sure you're not developing carpal tunnel. So one, why should you care? Well, so first of all, if you're playing games all the time on your computer, and it's also probably likely that you do at least some work on a computer for your job. It's probably a lot of overlap there, whether it's school, whether it's a day job, whether it's ancillary to your job functions. We all spend a lot of time on the computer now, and uh, people are developing carpal tunnel early in life. I was in grad school, like 8 years ago or so, and started developing it a little bit. And that's when I really started to care about this topic because I didn't want to be in a situation where it hurt not only to work, but also hurt to do the things that I enjoyed in my free time. That sounded awful. And so I started taking this stuff really seriously. Um, so why should you listen to me about it? I have been thinking about this for a while, but in addition to like my background playing games with all of you and all of that type of stuff, uh, I spend so much time on my computer. It's honestly embarrassing. So I have a advanced degree in computer science. I sit in front of my computer 10 to 12 hours a day for work, and then I play games on it too. Both like in Valorant, I play co-op games with my wife. Like we're on the computer all day long, and so I've learned a lot about the topic. And so it's important to me to like pass on these lessons to people and help them avoid pain in the future. I've also like had a lot of different experience making ergonomics work in a lot of different situations. I've lived a lot of places. I've had wide ranges and budgets and how much I can spend on stuff, from like being in a dorm room to being cramped into like a tiny little 100 square foot apartment in the UK for 3 months for research, to being able to use my nice tech job to pay for fancy gadgets like I can now. So a big part of this is not only uh, how you can improve your setup, but how you can do it, whether you have $0 to spend, whether you only have a few dollars to spend, or whether you have like money to set up something really nice for yourself. So a couple of disclaimers for anyone who's watching this, or all of you folks who are here live. I am not the right kind of doctor. None of the stuff I talk about today is medical advice. I'm a computer doctor, not a human doctor. This is such a deeply personal topic. Everyone's going to have different needs and requirements around ergonomics for their computer. For me, I can barely use the two right fingers on my right hand. I'm left-handed, and so I type kind of weird. And so the way I position my keyboard is a little different from most people and is not really applicable to most people. You might be short, you might be tall, you might have other things that make your use of the computer a little interesting. And I'm not trying to say that all the stuff that I'm going to talk about today is applicable to everyone. Um, it's also not something that you should get discouraged if you can't get to 100% or you don't have the money to spend on improving your setup. There are so many things you can do to make yourself more comfortable at your computer or when playing console games and stuff, that you can do on zero budget whatsoever, just with household items or stuff that you can like find around the house. So we're definitely going to talk about that as part of this. In the reference doc that I'll be going through, there are links. None of them are affiliate links. I'm not making any money off any of this. They are just strictly recommendations from what I've used and what I know people have used. So let's get started with the desk stuff. So I'm going to, let's see, what's the best way to do this? I think I'll just drag this over on top. Hey, look, it's me. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of laggy. Maybe, Peter, can you just like make me full screen for a second? Sweet. I'll give you a second. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the doc that I have in that I linked in the channel, and you'll be able to go find it in the Valorant Academy channel after this is posted. Probably put in the description of the video or something. And we're going to go through some of the goals of your setup of what you should be looking to do, and also different levels of improvement that you can do. So we're going to start with your chair and your desk. So as you can probably tell, there's this fancy like computer setup behind me. This is actually my gaming setup. The setup I am talking to you right now on is actually my work setup, and they're like back and forth. So I'm going to use my work setup to kind of give you a reference of what I do on my gaming setup. So your first goal here is feet flat on the ground when sitting in a chair. This is the first thing you should probably configure. If you can't get your feet flat on the ground, we'll talk about footrests and other options like that. But you really want to not be putting strain on your back and your legs by having them dangling or by having them like bunched up so your knees are up like this. You're looking to have like 90 to 120 degree angles for your legs and for your elbows, and you should be able to sit upright like this. I'm going to do the tension adjustment here, like right now that I can lean back too far. But if you do the tension adjustment right, you can actually, like most chairs will help put some cushion on your back here. So this is a nicer chair, but we'll talk about ways to, firm up the back of your chair if that's a problem for you right now. So for your chair and your desk setup, you should also be looking to see how easy this is to see for folks, but your armrest should be roughly level with your desk. The goal is to have your arm kind of have the armrest be an extension of the desk. There's some advice out there that your armrest should go under the desk, but a lot of those assume you have some sort of keyboard tray, which not a lot of people have anymore. So really the quote unquote modern advice here is to make sure that is to try to get your armrest roughly level with the desk. All right, so how do you improve this on a budget? So zero budget options. I've used kitchen chairs are actually not bad computer chairs, honestly. I've used kitchen chairs in the past with some additional back support via blankets or pillows quite frequently over the years. You can also use them as footrest building materials. And so what I mean by that is like if you have a blanket like this, you can actually use this to put additional padding on the back if like you need something a little bit more comfortable or something that fits your back a little bit better. Additionally, for the footrest thing, if you're short like I am and you may not have a chair that can adjust down far enough, one of those powerful tools you'll have that I'm going to keep referencing is old textbooks and books that you have in your house. I used these up until like a few years ago as like my ergonomic improvement tool. Maybe don't use a book that you have like a lot of like pent up frustration at, or maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Make that your footrest. It's up to you. But you probably have some books you're not using laying around the house, and combine that with a spare blanket or something like that, and you can actually create a little footrest for yourself. I would actually duct tape books together under my desk and then wrap it with a blanket, and it worked really well for that. If you want to spend a little bit of money on your chair, don't buy new chairs. It's the best advice I can give you. There's so many opportunities, especially if you live in bigger cities, to pick up used chairs from wholesalers or from companies that are going out of business or any other capacity. I picked up a couple chairs that way when I was in grad school. Weirdly to say, it's probably a good time to be doing that since tech is kind of hurting right now. But yeah, don't buy new chairs if you can help it. Thrift if you can. There's definitely good options there. You have to spend a little bit of money if you want to adjust the desk itself. Unfortunately, there's not really good, cheap, and safe ways to do that. If you're really bold, you could go back to the book method I talked about, but I don't really recommend that. There's adjustable legs you can fit to desktops, which is probably the route I would recommend. I haven't done it myself though. But taking the existing legs off whatever desk you're using and putting something adjustable on there so you can adjust them for your height is definitely an option. If you have more money to spend, there are lots of good brands out there. I would not discount thrifting for these though, and buying used and that sort of thing. They're super expensive to buy the high end brands, and I would definitely recommend that you go and sit in chairs if you're going to start splashing out a ton of money to improve your setup by buying a really nice chair. It's probably the place, if you're going to spend a ton of money, I would recommend that you spend it if it's going to be one place. A really nice chair is a game changer for your setup. Footrests, like I talked about making them. I bought a footrest once. There's a recommendation. I don't. Oh, and I didn't put the recommendation on there. My bad. But it's kind of. It's actually not much of a recommendation. I'm not sure if it was that much better than the book approach. So it's really mileage may vary. And once you get into the higher end budgets, you shouldn't really need a footrest. The goal is to have your feet flat on the ground without having to add something else to it. Finally, standing desks. I mean, they're great. These are both standing desks for me, and it's really important. It's something that could be really important for you if you struggle to take breaks when you're sitting at the computer. You can kind of alleviate that a little bit by like going into standing mode and then go back to sitting mode. So you get some movement into your use of the computer. We'll talk a little bit more about that later though. Before I move on to monitors, anybody want to ask questions or comments, concerns? I don't see anybody unmuting, so I'm going to keep going. So monitors, something important to think about. I'm going to lower this again. A lot of the setups you see on like the Battle Station subreddit, they look awesome, right? Like they like all these monitors and like all these stacked configurations with no gaps, etc. But a lot of them are just terrible ergonomically for use like over a long period of time. There's a couple things to remember. One, you want your main monitor that you're using, that you're spending most of your time looking at, your eye line should be in the top third of the monitor approximately. You should be looking down at it a little bit. There's some images later in the deck that can give you like an idea of like all the angles and stuff. I'll drop it. I should have dropped it in the reference document. I'll do that afterwards. But getting your monitor potentially lower, depending on where it's at, or higher, and making sure your eye line is in the top third of the monitor is a big improvement for your back and your neck. The other thing you should do is tilt the monitor a little bit. And this is hard to show, so I grabbed an old monitor from the basement. And I wanted to show you kind of live, like what I mean by this. So like most of the time people will have their monitors like straight on like this. And what you want to do is tilt it backwards at like a 5-degree angle. Not much. It doesn't have to be like a ton. A little bit. So that as you're looking down from it from the top third, your eyes are kind of falling naturally to the center of the screen. So you're not really straining or doing anything unnatural. So yeah, that's the goal for how your monitor is set up. So how do you approach improving your monitor setup? I'm going to come back to my favorite tool. If you don't have any monitor, if you don't have a separate monitor stand, or your monitor stand that came with your computer is not very flexible, these are your best friend. Books or other things that you can do to stick under your monitor, raise or lower it. I doubt it's too high, but maybe it is. You can also use loose leaf paper, like printer paper or something, to tilt the monitor back. Like I said, you're not going for like a huge tilt that's going to cause the monitor to fall backwards. Just a little bit of a tilt. So when you're looking down at the screen, you're getting kind of like that straight perspective for your eyes. Of everything in the list that I'm sharing with you today, if you're going to spend like $20, if you have poor quality monitor mounts, it's probably the best upgrade you can make, because you can adjust the eye level and it kind of helps you shift your whole setup. So something like this which is what my wife has on her desk. This is a $20 VESA mount, which is what most modern monitors they have behind them. And you can just take your monitor off the mount and put it on this. The link in the chat is like a $25 one. That's the black version of this. If you're going to spend like $20 to improve your setup, that's my recommendation if your monitor situation is not in a good shape. If you're going to spend a lot of money, you can also absolutely start looking at higher hertz monitors. They help with Valorant for sure. So you can, as long as your computer can push the frames. I think people have talked about this in previous sessions, so I'm not going to rehash it. And then obviously you can start spending more on monitor arms, something that'll clamp to your desk and gives you more range of motion and more tilt. And I link what I use on my 2 setups in the deck as well. Okay, the mouse. I know that folks talked about sensitivity in a previous session, but I'm going to do it again because it's also a health thing for a lot of people. If your sensitivity is really high and you've been stubborn about changing it, I beg you to lower it, and so that it takes more mouse movement to do a 360. It's really important that you're trying to get as many micro movements off your wrists as possible to save the tendons and all the connections in your hand. Starting to getting used to using your entire arm to move your mouse to point at things, and just doing that final little adjustment with your hand will take years off your wrists. And something that it feels really unnatural to start doing at first, but once you start doing it, you're really putting a lot of mileage, taking a lot of mileage off your wrists. If you don't know whether your sensitivity is high, the best opinion I can give you is to go look at the pro settings link in the document and see how your centimeters per 360 compares to professional Valorant players. If you are way too high or even way too low could hurt it too. Compared to like the normal distribution there, think about lowering your sensitivity or raising your sensitivity potentially, but I kind of doubt that people are that low. It's something that not only might help you play better, but it's also something that will help you physically too. This is advice I give people at work too, honestly, is stop using like these tiny little mouse pads that barely have any real estate and then doing everything with your wrist. Like that's causing strain. In terms of gripping your mouse, I don't know how much people know about grips, but there's typically like a palm grip where you kind of have your whole hand on it, and then there's like the progressive, like the claw. I don't use either of these grips, so I'm gonna mess them up. Where you're only partially gripping it, and then the fingertip grip, which is really severe, where you're barely touching the mouse at all. I'm not going to get into whether one type is easier than another. I think most pro players use like a more claw type grip, but without resting their hand on the mouse. But, and again, this is not medical advice. Just use a palm grip. It's going to take, again, years off your wrists in terms of like wear and tear that you're going to put on it, because you're going to be resting your wrist rather than like constantly holding it at tension while you're playing. None of us are professional players. And so like whatever 5% improvement you're getting from it, do your body a favor and consider at least trying out the palm grip and trying to take some of that strain off your wrists. So some more improvements you can make. The mouse real estate thing I already mentioned. If you're to accommodate that lower sensitivity, you're going to need more space to work with. So try to create more space on your desk if you can. I'm not going to talk about mouse pads. They're crazy. You can spend literally hundreds of dollars on them somehow. It's nuts, but yeah. It's up to you. There's lots of people on the Discord that have opinions about mouse pads. And again, I just really want to double click on this. Just switch to a palm grip if you're using something more like claw-like or fingertip-like. Your wrists will thank you. All right, so won't talk much about the keyboard, especially because like I have a weird keyboard setup because I'm my 2 right fingers that don't work very well. But the most important thing about however you are using your keyboard is keep your wrist straight as you're typing. So going back to my gaming setup, when I'm actually playing, when I'm typing, I just keep it straight in front of me like this. But when I'm playing, I will definitely do a slight tilt here, so that like when my right arm is focused on here, that it's a perfectly perpendicular to the keyboard, basically. And the goal there is just like you don't want to be holding your wrist at a weird angle for long periods of time. That puts more strain on it, et cetera, et cetera. Wrist rests are really personal opinion. There really hasn't been shown to be much evidence either way about whether they help or not. I would say that you could try to avoid clicking as much just by learning keyboard shortcuts for whatever you're doing, whether it's Valorant stuff or productivity stuff. Keyboard shortcuts means you click less things, which means less strain on your hand. Okay, so that's all the ergonomic stuff. So let's talk about some of the exercises. So I'm just going to demonstrate like a couple of ones I do throughout my day. The most important advice I can give you, if you follow nothing else that I talk about in terms of ergonomic stuff for your desk or exercises, is to take breaks. And what I mean by that is like every hour or so, make sure you're standing up, stretching, etc. Like that will go a long way towards mitigating any problems you have with your setup, more than spending money on your setup wheel or changing things around. Taking breaks is something you're still going to have to do. The biggest things you can do for your wrists, I classified them. This particular YouTuber doesn't actually classify in this way, but just for ease of reference, there's more flexibility oriented exercises. And then if you really want to get into it, there's things you can do to actually strengthen your wrists and stuff. But for some of the flexibility stuff, the two big ones are doing circles with your wrists like this. Get up higher. There we go. Like this. And then back the other way. And they usually recommend you do like 10 to 15 of these. And then they also recommend that you do it with an open hand too. And you can feel if you do them yourself that it does like slightly different things. Like the tension in your wrist will feel slightly different, and you're actually exercising different tendons in like different ways doing this, and which is why you do the open and the closed. The other thing you can do, and this is something that particularly helps if you've already developed some pain in your wrists, is stretch them the other way, for lack of a better way to put it. So you should definitely watch the doctor do this before and not just rely on mine. But you're basically sticking your wrist out like this and then just pulling very slightly on your hand towards your body. And you want to do this at each position too, because it's going to exercise different muscles in your hand and your wrist. You can also do the same thing with your palm open. And as you do these, you might feel like, for me, this is like the most relieving / tension filled thing in this loop. But you should do each like north, south, east, west, do like a couple seconds of each. And you'll start to get a feel for where you like might have the most tension build up from whatever your personal, setup issues are. Okay. I think I do have more content here. Yeah. Oh, I don't. Never mind. While we do questions, I will put up this reference. Hey. So this is like the best summary I have. Oh, why did it do that? This is the best summary I have of that I found, which is in one of the references of basically what you're looking to do, what you shouldn't be doing, and what you should be doing in terms of your sitting posture. So don't have to be perfect. Even if you improve one of these things because of this seminar, I will be super happy. But I will hope everyone takes this opportunity to learn a little bit about how they're sitting at their computer and think a little bit more deeply about how they're sitting at their computer, and hopefully make some investments to improve your health now and into the future. So I'm happy to take any questions that people have.
Two things. One,
Yep.
the picture doesn't actually show up for us.
It doesn't?
Nah.
Oh, it's my CPU's failing. Whoops. I've actually pegged my CPU. That sucks. I'm just going to stop streaming. I'll drop the reference to it in the doc.
Okay.
Appreciate the call.
Do you have any opinions on like those Blick keyboards, or like the ones that have like the wavy form, or ergonomic in general? Do they actually do anything, or is it just more aesthetic or form factor kind of thing?
Personal preference. I don't like them. I know people at work who swear by them, who spend even more time on the computer than I do. There's definitely something to it if you're doing a lot of typing. If you're a programmer or you're a technical writer, and like you're actually clicking, or not clicking so much, but really typing almost like for the majority of your actions, there can be something to it because it naturally contours, if you buy the right one, to your arm's tendency to come towards the keys. So like the Microsoft ones are probably the best example of it. Some of the more elaborate ones I've seen people use, and more power to them, but I don't know. I haven't seen anything that says they're necessarily better or worse than more standard ergonomic keyboards.
Great.
Any other questions? Yeah, I didn't want to run too long, and I don't do these as much myself. There are some exercises if you specifically want to work on hand, wrist, and forearm strength in this from the same YouTuber who I got the flexibility slash stretching stuff from. But the best advice I've gotten from the advice I've gotten from doctors when I've asked about this over the years is the best thing you can do is practical things, which means push-ups, pull-ups, body weight exercises in general that like naturally would improve your strength of your entire arm and not like overly overtrain one specific part of the body. The biggest risk is at least, and again, not medical advice. Please don't take this as medical advice. I hear a lot about people overtraining for this sort of thing, and whether it be like I used to play basketball in high school, for example, and I sprained my wrist several times. And I didn't do it in games. I didn't do it in like active situations. I did it training, like shooting like way too many shots in practice, or doing curls or some stuff like that. So if you're already doing sets of exercise, you can incorporate things that exercise your forearms and your wrists and your hands more, like push-ups and pull-ups and bodyweight exercises, things like that. If you're not exercising at all right now, I definitely wouldn't recommend isolation training on your forearms, wrists, and hands. Start doing some bodyweight stuff. Like that's like baby steps.
Also, to go with painted, I 100% agree with that because I grew up playing tennis and all the
It's a
wrist
good one.
exercises, stretches absolutely help. Never have wrist
Yeah.
pain because of it.
Yeah.
Also, palm grip for life.
If for no other reason than to save your wrists. All right.
Are
If there's
there,
no other question, oh, go ahead.
oh, I had one. Are there any like specific recommendations for keyboards that you would have for people that have pain in their digits and stuff?
It's a good question. It really depends. It's super personal, is the way I would put it. I typical membrane keyboards, like the cheaper ones, are going like require more force. And you have to kind of like you don't get really like a smooth force profile when you push down on them, which can really exasperate it. But without knowing the kind of pain you have, it's hard to say for sure. There's probably more like the first thing I would try before spending money is really evaluate what I said about your wrists and your being straight, and make sure that you're not like tilted like this or while you're typing. That would be the first thing I would check. If whatever keyboard you have, you just can't get to a place where you can get them straight like that, then you can start looking at keyboards. I have super basic ones, just to be clear. Like these are just basic mechanical keyboards. So I know people like the ergonomic ones. They've never been for me, partially because I'm left-handed and it makes playing games super awkward when you're trying to like spin the keyboard even further out. But it's really think about it from like, how is this going to improve how my wrists interact with the keyboard rather than this keyboard will improve the problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there like certain kinds of keys, mechanical keys that are that require less effort that you know of?
If you're buying for gaming, reds are pretty popular. Browns are good. Brown switches are more generalist ones that a lot of people use. I mentioned that in the document a little bit, and I'm happy to talk more about like there's mechanicalkeyboards.com that has a bunch of like that's where I always buy mine. They're all pretty basic ones, not flashy, not RGB or anything like that. So there's a lot of questions about like what your typical use case is, and different switches will are better for different things. So like I have reds, Cherry MX reds on that, and I have blues on the one in front of me, which are the super clicky clack stereotypical keys. So
Gotcha, makes sense.
One question is, do you know anything if there might be a difference between like how close the monitor is to your face, the different type of monitors, whether it's like IPS or the other ones, whether they actually like exacerbate eye strain or not, or if it's all the same kind of thing?
So the arm length thing, the distance, like get your monitor about an arm's length away, is definitely applicable. I personally, I have not found any, like written evidence of this, but higher frames per second / hertz definitely feels easier on the eyes for me. I can barely look at like 30 frames a second anymore on anything.
That's fair.
But the other thing I would say, like, and there's actually a guide of like how far you want to be in the reference document. Like if you have this size monitor with this many pixels in it, then it should be about like your ideal viewing distance is about this. So take a look at like what size monitor you have, the number of pixels it has, and check the link. It's from Bank, who makes like pretty good monitors, and so I feel like their recommendations are pretty good. It's also like a performance thing for your computer. I feel like a lot of people these days overbuy in terms of like power and what they have in front of them, whether it be a 4K TV that they're sitting super far from and or super close to, and they're not really getting the benefit of it or something like that. So definitely something to think about.
Awesome. Thanks.
Oh, I guess I didn't answer your question about panels. I just realized. I know that some panels claim to be better, easier on the eyes, and like the blue light filtration and stuff like that. I have blue light filtering glasses, which is why you see like such a strong reflection in the video at points. And I definitely use like the night mode and stuff like that. That's definitely something that can help. If you calibrate monitors according to like, I've used them out of the box. Is what I was trying to say. Sorry. They're typically super bright. And so checking in to see if like your brightness is turned all the way up or whether you can get it lower will also save some eye strain for you. Any other questions? Well, cool. Thanks for coming out and asking good questions and stuff. I'll take the feedback that you guys gave and drop it in the document, and appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. 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 Lots of pain from sitting in crappy dorm rooms and hotel rooms and all this stuff throughout grad school, especially like a lot of hard lessons, painful lessons learned. So. All right, folks. I'm gonna take a quick break, get some water, and go join customs. Peace.
Yep.
Yep.